cut so far for January, and so the budget versus actuals is pretty bare bones right now, just that it's been entered and now we can start moving along.
For our budget for this year, where do we project ending up on cash at the end of the year? Do you have an idea? The reason I'm asking, we have about $600,000 in the bank, and it's just sitting in a checking account. I was thinking we ought to be buying some CDs to generate some income.
Yes, so those were funds that we had received for a grant from the PHFA so we were given those funds for now that we have to hold on to. That's deferred revenue until those programs start incurring expenses that have to be paid. So that's not actually unrestricted funds that we're able to invest right now.
We can't invest them on a short-term basis? No. Oh, okay.
We could, but it would be very, very short term because I'm not sure how soon those projects are going to start, that we would have to start paying contractors with those funds.
All right. Any other questions on the finance report? Okay, the next is we have the report of the executive director.
All right, thank you. So hopefully everyone's received the email regarding our presentation at the Tom Ridge Environmental Center on March 4th. From Flint to Erie, the power of land banking. We are fortunate enough to have Michael Freeman, the executive director of the Genesee County Land Bank, coming in as part of that airing of the video, which is based upon the Genesee County Land Bank and how they have worked over the years. We also hope to have Robin Schwartz, Emmy-winning documentary producer who produced the Land Bank 20 years from crisis to opportunity. We hope she will attend. She has acknowledged that she wants to attend, but there might be a conflict, so we're still hoping she's there. So hopefully you're able to attend and you've RSVP'd, but it is open to the public on a first-come, first-served basis right now until we reach our maximum capacity. So certainly we put it out there that anybody interested is welcome to attend, or anybody that you know that you think would get benefit from attending, please share the invitation with them so that they can get registered. Just for the board, I submitted on behalf of the Erie Land Bank a request to be taken into consideration as part of the Center for Community Progress's housing choice voucher to home ownership learning cohort. So they're going to select, I believe it's 4 municipalities or land banks from across the United States to join into the housing choice voucher to home ownership learning cohort. And I can share the information on there, but it's a collaborative cohort between the Land Bank, City of Erie, and the City of Erie Housing Authority. So if we do get selected, there'll be a group of us who will meet with other experts from across the nation and learn how we can better leverage housing choice vouchers with home ownership opportunities. So once if I hear anything back from Center for Community Progress, I will make sure I share that with the board. The next thing, 3702 Oakwood was a property we took by donation. I know back the end of last year I had said that we visited the property and it was severely distressed and we were going to entertain demolition of it. I since over the end of the year and early this year received a lot of interest in the property. So we put it out for developer proposals. So the foundation is salvageable. It does have some severe deterioration, like I said, but I believe it's salvageable, and I think in the neighborhood it's a good home ownership opportunity, so it's going to get listed with the realtor and have proposals due by March 6th, so hopefully we can move it to the agenda in March and move this forward so that by the end of the year it can be rehabilitated and put out for home ownership opportunities.
The framing is good?
The framing in 3/4 of the property is good. The rear structure sustained tree damage following the snowfall last Thanksgiving in 2024. And the homeowner didn't take any effort to stop the leak, which led to severe deterioration and rot in the rear half of the house. So there is some structural damage, some structural rot to the framing members. But, I mean, it's nothing, like I said, the foundation is stable and 3/4 of the framing is stable. So it is salvageable. It's just going to take a substantial investment to salvage it at this time.
Well, that gives us another project in a good neighborhood of Erie that we'd like to show progress like we were able to do down in where I live in the Frontier area.
Yeah,
And this was donated by the
This
owner.
was donated by the
Okay.
former owner. The
So that
title
sped
is
it
cleared.
up, yeah.
Gene and his team did the title work, so we're good to transfer. It's just a matter of finding somebody with the ability and experience to handle something that is this severely distressed. So it's going to take a substantial amount of work, but again, it's in a stable neighborhood. It's a good starter home situation, so it's got some good possibilities to it. And then the last thing is the PARA, Pennsylvania Association of Housing and Redevelopment Agencies, Spring Conference, June 8th through 10th, is going to partner again this spring with the Pennsylvania Land Bank Network. We're going to have an entire day of land banking for all Pennsylvania land banks to attend on Tuesday, June 9th. Gene and his team is going to present on a session of inheritance tax and the work to eliminate those burdens from properties to the membership of the Pennsylvania Association of Housing and Redevelopment Agencies and the Land Bank Network. But it's really gonna kick off with a day, really a whole day, 4 good sessions of land banking from really our work toward building a strategic plan for the Pennsylvania Land Bank Network on through working through troubles and issues, how we select properties, and then end the day with Gene's session on PA inheritance tax and other state tax and title issues. So yeah, we look forward to that. So certainly once I have some more information, I'll share that with the board members who may wish to attend that. Again, it's at the Hershey Lodge, June 8th through 10th. That is my report.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Snippert?
No questions.
I have a question. How did we get in the title of From Flint to Erie? Now, hopefully that means Flint most blighted to Erie least blighted, or how did we get in the title?
I'm not quite sure. I believe Erie Arts and Culture came up with that, but, so it's a collaborative presentation between Erie County Land Bank, Erie Arts and Culture, and the Erie Land Bank.
Okay.
So, so we're all 3 organizations are coming together to bring this video to Erie and showcase land banking and the benefits it has on the community.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the solicitor's report.
Good afternoon, Board. It's nice to be here on a sunny Monday. Spring is here. My memorandum and my monthly report is getting smaller, which is great news. We have a closing set for 427 Liberty Street, the middle of March. Looking forward to getting that done, and again, off to a new owner with the opportunity to collect taxes for our city. I have 3 pending quiet title actions, 2 of which are really wrapping up. First of which on January 20th, that order was accepted and signed by Judge Piccinini. Again, we wait 30 days thereafter to make sure that the property owner or heirs or any of the like don't come forward. Then once that's, after that 30 days, we enter the final judgment, and then we're good to go forward with that property. I'll be in front of Judge Meade again tomorrow morning on 1127 East 19th Street. Do not anticipate any issues with regard to that. We had received a deed from the immediate heir, but we looked at some service issues, so we're just kind of tidying that up a little bit. So we should be in good shape and do not expect any problems with regard to that. And then again, with a quiet title action, it was recently filed, and then you'll see how long it takes the hearing dates for us to get onto the court calendar. Again, it was filed on January 7th, so again, that hearing will take place in April. So it's a pretty quick turnaround, but it's not immediate, and would not anticipate that there's going to be any problems with regard to that title. So those are what we have pending right now. We're continuing to push forward and clear titles so that we can get properties sold to third parties and or consideration for developer agreements. If you have any questions, I'd love to
I just
hear
had a
it.
question for Aaron. For 2216 German Street, is that developer still interested, or is that going back?
That developer reached out to me and said that they are still interested, that they would like to look at the property again with us and determine if what were our expectations of it are in line with what their thoughts are, but they are still interested and still want to proceed, whether it takes till May or not. So they're still holding on that one.
I have a question, and it's a problem we have in general. We have a lot of these out-of-town investors that will buy a string of properties here in Erie and just kind of put them on hold and don't keep them up and barely pay the taxes. And Mr. Snipper was explaining to me that we only have the power to obtain in rem judgments, I guess, just against the properties that we're focused on. And it would be a lot better if we could get a judgment, a personal judgment against some of these owners, which would pick up all their properties, which would reduce the expenditures we have for demolitions and such, and hopefully would cause these people to pay more attention to what they own here in Erie, rather than letting them to discard it to us. We spend taxpayer money to knock it down, and then we don't have recourse past the property. Is there anything going on in the state, or do you have any thoughts on that, how we could get a personal judgment against any of these individuals?
You know what, that's one of the reasons why I've spoken with Aaron quite extensively about having me attend these conferences to network with other solicitors around, not only the Commonwealth, but beyond the Commonwealth, to find out if there is a process or if people have had success in getting personal judgments against them that would attach, that we could collect for all these expenses that we're incurring that are really kind of going unpaid or exonerated by the city. So that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to. I have not been able to find in my research a process to do that, but I'm always looking for insight. So that's why in speaking with Aaron, he suggested it, and I completely agree that these type of things at Hershey Lodge is an opportunity for me to talk to people and introduce myself, not only explain what we're doing here in Erie, but find out. I'm always like a sponge. I want as much information as I can to find out what other people are doing, to see how we can benefit our city in trying to collect on the expenses that we're incurring. So that is, Mr. Nickel, that's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to participating in these, is to find out where I can be proactive.
Yes, for example, we have one on the blight list today who owns 10 properties, and there's just one that's the subject of our attention today. An example I just ran into, I had 10 properties appraised a couple of weeks ago for a refinance, and I said, boy, that's a lot to do in one day, and the fellow said, this is nothing. I was here a couple of weeks ago and did 50 appraisals, and he rattled off some of the addresses, and it was, marginal properties, but somebody is spending the money to appraise those, but not fixing them up and such, and it's just, we need to be able to get at an owner like that somehow, and personal judgments would do that, where if we're just restricted to the property, we don't have any real teeth, I don't think.
Right, and that's, again, that's why I was appreciative of Aaron pulling me aside and saying, hey, Gene, will you start coming to these? And I gladly did it. I have, there is a law firm in Philadelphia who wrote kind of the textbook on eminent domain and condemnation actions, and I've reached out to them and have a contact. So I'm not bashful about sending an email saying, hey,
yes,
look, we're running into this situation. Do you guys have, can you lead me in the right direction, or have you had any beneficial process that I can see if I can incorporate for the city of Erie? So I'll do that, absolutely.
Thank you. Any more questions for the solicitor? Okay. Next is unfinished business and new business.
All right, thank you. So the next thing is the Erie Land Bank 2026 work plan condemnation acquisitions. And so we had a conversation last month regarding the work plan identified 4 properties that we would take under, or identified the ability to acquire 4 properties by condemnation through the redevelopment authority off the blighted property list for the city of Erie. I had asked to get 2 additional since we acquired less properties off the judicial tax sale than we had previously anticipated. So you had agreed to that. So I have put together a resolution for 10 properties. It's 10 properties because historically we know as Gene and his team start the process of title search and we start going down the process of notifying property owners and working through this long process, which can take us 3 to 4 or 5 months before we get to even the finish line of the court filing. Properties fall out. They drop off. Individuals come out of the woodwork for the first time and they want to strike up a conversation. And so certainly we have a percentage that we lose, and it is typically 25 to 30% of the properties that fall out through from this point until we finally get to acquisition. So I am proposing 10. If we get to the point and there is more than 6, then I'll bring that before the board and we can figure out which properties we definitely want to follow through. But the resolution today and the discussion we'll follow is to, if you are in agreement with that, then so moved, and furthermore, if there are properties that, as we go through that you want to X out of acquisition or us proceeding with for one reason or another. But these are properties that we have looked at. I've met with code enforcement and we've kind of gone through the list and then prioritized these as some of the highest need based upon code enforcement history, issues within the community, neighborhood organizations or neighborhood groups having problems with the properties, or that the property resides in an otherwise stable or healthy neighborhood and it's really a detriment to that community or that block. So I'll share my screen now and we can kind of walk through the properties. The one thing I will note for record, on the resolution it says 403, 405 East 10th Street. That is really supposed to be 403, 405 East 21st Street. If I share the right thing, I'll be all good. All right. So first up is 116 East 25th Street. It was blight certified in October of 2021. Declaration was recorded, utilities are inactive, it's in a qualified census tract, the conditions remain unresolved, and it's recommended for condemnation.
Has the roof been reached on that one?
It's hard to determine. It seems to be intact, but again, at this point, we haven't gained entry to the property. That is the next step in the process, is to notify the property owner that we plan to enter the property for the purpose of assessment and appraisal. So we'll get a better idea once we enter the property with the appraiser to get the value of the property moving forward. So again,
that's a flat?
it appears to be a 2-unit.
Yeah.
Looks like it's flat.
So again, it was a recommendation of code enforcement to acquire because of its high call count as far as issues and complaints from neighbors and residents around it.
Now, I see this was certified as
In 2021,
in 2021. Do we ever take any proactive measures when they are blight certified? I mean, do we ever replace roofs or something like that to keep? I mean, the one you're going to show us on East Avenue is a good example of what happens when the roof goes and
yeah.
the building's destroyed. But the roof is the thing to check on these, and if we're 3, 4, 5 years and then before we take title to them,
Right. But
we
keep
can
in
lose
mind,
a lot
so
of value in that property in that time.
The blight certification is only a tool. It is not an ownership mechanism. So at this point, ownership and responsibility still falls on the property owner of record.
When it's certified as blight, if we advance money to make repairs to try to keep it as a saleable asset, do we get a lien for that, or we'd have to sue for that, or?
So typically, the land bank does not advance any money to property owners for any rehabilitation purposes. And then on the housing rehab side of it, typically a property that's been identified as blighted does not meet the qualifications for housing rehab programs. They're not occupiable. There's utility issues, there's just a high level of distress or whatever the case would be, so that there's no qualification for that.
So Aaron, are you looking at the outside and the inside? Because actually the property does, I mean, I don't know what the roof looks like, but the property doesn't really look lighted, I guess. Maybe that.
You just don't know, right? Or at this point, you haven't been in it.
Right, so the blight designation is based upon exterior property maintenance code issues. So when a property is referred to the Blighted Property Review Committee, it's typically, and I say 90% of the time, because of exterior issues. It is vacant, utilities have been disconnected, the property has a high extent of property maintenance code issues, and therefore code enforcement has done a few things. At that point, they've issued many notice of violations. They've potentially either cited a property owner, tried to gain compliance, but that property owner, for one reason or another, has remained absentee. They have been non-responsive. They failed to respond to the issues. The other 10% of the time, code enforcement does have access to a property if it is open for the purpose of going in to make sure there is no occupants inside before they secure the property upon leaving it. But code enforcement will not and cannot enter a property that is privately owned for any other reason unless to make sure that it is vacant to secure the property. So right now, as far as these properties that are being presented for the board to consider, the authorizing the redevelopment authority to proceed down that process, for the most part, is exterior based only. And the properties are vacant. There is typically no utilities on at the property. They are not habitable from at least the point of active water service. Now, whether they're able to be rehabilitated, that is a determination we'll have to make once we gain entry, because under the urban redevelopment law, the authority by notification of the property owner posting to the property within 10 days, we have the right to enter a property for the purpose of assessment or appraisal. So prior to our condemnation action, we can enter the property, get a good assessment of the property, get a valuable and comprehensive appraisal of the property, which helps us with our just compensation when we do file a declaration of taking with the courts.
How many properties are on the blight list?
Without the update from last week's, it was around 275 properties. There's about 130 of those that are actionable on the blighted property list.
And how many of them have you been into?
That I can't answer. I don't have a number on that.
But it isn't, the current practice is not to go in quickly to assess the interior.
No.
I just think we should be doing that because of, if the roof's going, we're going to lose the value of the property totally.
Right, but again, it's privately held. We don't have the ability to do evasive actions. Now, certainly
You could go in and inspect once you put it on the blight list,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And you could also code enforce them. I mean, a bad roof is something code enforcement could issue.
Right, but keep in mind, for the most part, these properties have gotten to the blighted property list because they are non-responsive property owners. They, for one reason or another, do not want to respond. They do not want to, most of these properties, and we would have to take it on a case-by-case basis, but there is usually a lengthy code enforcement record on these properties of failure to respond, a notice of violation for exterior tall grass and weed, junk and debris, open windows, deteriorated or collapsing porches. Numerous issues are normally identified by code enforcement in an attempt to gain voluntary compliance under the code enforcement's practices. However, they've gotten to the point of a blight designation because they failed to respond for one of those. Now, when you're looking at and there's things we can look at, and Act 135 allows for, it's escaping me at the moment. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank, but there's some Act 135 under Pennsylvania State Code allows for the ability for us to kind of step in on a property like that, and it's something we can explore. It's something that we haven't ever really looked at within the city of Erie, but it's a tool we have. But it would allow us to go in and petition the court for really the ability to go in and secure a property. It's something residential, whether or not we would want to entertain, but really right now, under what we're looking at, there's really nothing we can do or force an owner to put a roof on.
Well, if the owner doesn't cooperate, what would you have to do to be able to enter the building, to be able to just break into it? Would you need a court order, or?
For us to enter the property or under a blight designation?
Yes.
Like I said, under a blight designation, under the redevelopment authority's urban redevelopment law, if we notify, if a property is blighted, we can post the property and notify the owner. And with 10 days after that notice, we have the right to enter the property for an assessment or an appraisal of the property.
I mean, shouldn't we be doing that? I'm thinking back to the one that was knocked down at 6th and Vermont, where we're having that nice ranch built, but that was a very sturdy house, but that had a water issue that destroyed the interior. The one we're going to deal with later today, water has destroyed the interior. I mean, this is costing the city a lot of money that we're not on top of this. And I think we should be going into these as soon as they're blighted, just to see if there's something salvageable inside or not.
It comes down to capacity across the board, capacity on code enforcement side, capacity on the redevelopment authority side, and really the need to look at the process and the processes within, you know, the code enforcement and how we look at these properties, how we identify them. We know, you know, over the last 5 years, we've aggressively gone after blighted properties and blighted property acquisition. And so certainly we're getting to them sooner than we used to be. And so we're seeing a better outcome on acquisition as far as the percentage of properties that are going, you know, instead of going to demolition, that are going to be rehabilitation candidates. But to go in and assess every single property, it's really it's something we've talked about. It's something that myself and representatives from code enforcement have looked at, and it's something that we're evaluating down the road. So certainly, yes, we do evaluate and know the value added to going into these properties for the purpose of evaluation. But again, sometimes, and to your point, the one on Vermont, we didn't get that property till about 8 years after that pipe burst, you know, and that certainly comes down to a lot of other issues that we're aware of. But it's all about education, educating the community, educating the residents and the neighborhood groups, because identification of these properties needs to occur faster and sooner, you know, to the point where we're aware of it a year after it became vacant, as opposed to 5 or 6 years.
And so, Aaron, are these properties, property owners who haven't paid their property taxes?
Yes, for the most part, and we could go through, and I can get more detailed information on every one of these properties, but for the most part, they're all 2 years delinquent on taxes or more. They've been vacant or failed to respond to a notice of violation or make necessary repairs to the property. Under the Blighted Property Review Committee and the Blight Law 12.1 under Urban Redevelopment Law, it details out a list of 7, I say 9 criteria, because the one's broken into a couple bullet points and it only has to meet one of those criteria for the Blighted Property Review Committee to declare it blighted. One of those is 2 years tax delinquent. Any property that's 2 years tax delinquent and vacant can be declared blighted by the BPRC. However, there's like I said, there's 9 other criteria in which it could meet for a property to be declared blighted, which then starts, again, another whole timeline: notice of blight, timeline of the redevelopment authority's 30-day period to acquire it. They have a 20-day period to appeal the blight designation. But once the BPRC blights the property and we post the notice of blight to the property and mail it to the address of record, 30 days from that date, the redevelopment authority under the urban redevelopment law has its ability to file and proceed with eminent domain process on that property. It's something that we don't take lightly. Taking property is not fun, and it's not our first attempt. Certainly, like I said before, code enforcement makes every attempt to notify a property owner and gain voluntary compliance. This is only part of the process for us to help rid the neighborhood of these properties, which, you know, can be a cancer on another otherwise stable neighborhood.
But the fact is, if they're let to go to where they need to be knocked down, not only there is a cost with the prices we currently have in the city, nothing's going to be built on that. So this is really a priority issue. And we've had a lot of success in this city in the last decade or so with people rehabbing houses in the city, which has helped the city. And for this to be, when you say they don't have enough manpower, this is really a priority. I mean, if there's 200 on that list, and it doesn't take a whole lot of work to go around and see if the roof's intact or not, we should be securing them, because as they sit, they might be worth 25 or 30,000, where they're worth minus 10,000 if we've got to take it down, and then nothing's going to be built there. We've lost something on the tax base. So this is a priority.
I agree with you, and I think it's something that we've certainly seen and something that we're working toward, trying to get as much visibility on these properties as we possibly can. And I think, like I said, that comes down to the holistic approach. It's not just city departments, certainly that's a big part of it, but that's the tools we have at the land bank. That's the tools we have at the redevelopment authority, to get these properties and move them. We receive calls almost weekly on how people acquire a property off the blight list, and we inform them we don't own them. Certainly that's a private sale from a private individual, and so it just comes down to, a lot of times these people aren't reachable, they're not available, there's no willingness to sell that property or convey it. And so that's where then we step in on our side of the process and try to force and get compliance through eminent domain condemnation and our abilities under the blight law, our abilities under judicial tax sale to option those properties and move them back into that productive reuse.
So what if somebody says that they were not aware that this, one of their properties got taken? Is there a way that they could fight to get the property back, or once it's in our possession, that's...
There is a process for that. It is a very complex process, and so there is a process for that, and that's probably the easiest way for me to answer that question, and certainly something I could sit down and review with you, but there's a lot of variables to that, but there is a process, there is a part of it, but we do follow all the service requirements when it comes to a property, and so there for most case, service has been rendered and it has been documented, so notice is there, and it comes down to, again, following that process. Back to the
list.
properties, all right.
Yeah.
All right, 316 Newman Street is a residential property. It was certified blight in June of 2023. No compliance achieved. Recommendation is condemnation, of course, but it has been vacant for some time. Even prior to the 2023 blight certification, it was vacant. I know code enforcement worked with the property owner to try to get them to do something, but they did not. 616 Wayne Street, certified blighted in March of 2024. Conditions persist. Owner has been non-responsive, so certainly code enforcement condemnation is recommended. 403, 405 East 21st Street, blighted in 2017. Utilities inactive since 2008. Long-term vacancy. This is a property, I have a meeting next Friday with the owner of this property. We did have conversations with her back in 2023. The authority had previously filed condemnation on this property, and we relinquished it back under the understanding that work would be started on the property and that they would follow through with that. That did not happen. That's why I recommended that we move forward. Upon that, I reached out to the owner again for the 10-day notice, and they have reached out and requested a meeting. So we are going to sit down and talk through that. And this really goes back to, like I said, identify 10 and hope that we can end up with 6 that we don't work through. Because again, we want to open that line of communication. We want them to work on it. But a lot of times we see this, that just the means and the knowledge to get there isn't there. And so we'll help as much as we can. But certainly, using our tools and keeping that process going is always the best part.
So Aaron, is that internal renovations? Because the outside of it looks like it's fine.
The outside, so the windows were open up until last week after the letter notifying that we were going to start pre-condemnation proceedings on the property. So they did go in, fix the windows and close the windows on the front of the property. But it does contain numerous code violations on the exterior of the property as far as deteriorating structures. And we have far more pictures than what I've provided to you. And so the back of, when my inspector went to the property last week, the rear window was open, and it appeared that people had been climbing through the back window and entering the property. So certainly owner has not been diligent enough to make sure that the property has remained secured to the point that vagrants and people are not entering the property, so.
Now, that's a flat roof building. Has anybody been up on the roof I mean, I was intrigued by the size of that property, and I searched it. That person has had that property, owns a house around the corner, but has no other assets, so I don't see where there's anything realistic about that person having the ability to fund anything there. That's near the area of Black Wall Street. Have they ever looked at that property, for example?
Not to my knowledge.
But I just don't think it's realistic to think this person has the ability to fund improvements to the property.
Yeah, that's the conversation, like I said, that's the conversation we had
I mean,
a
do
few
we do
years ago.
lien searches before we talk to these people? In other words, that thing might be encumbered for a couple $100,000. I mean, it's a hopeless circumstance, and you have people that won't communicate, and I know you're busy with other things, as are the other city employees, but something like this, we've got a building that it would be great to salvage, and if it goes down, it's going to be a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Chairman, I'll to interject, this morning I finished reviewing the title search with regard to this property. As Aaron indicated, there's 2-year back taxes due on it. There's a Commonwealth tax lien on it. Not significant, but it's about $4,000 Commonwealth tax lien on the property. I don't remember there being a mortgage on it, but I have a memo coming to Aaron later today or first thing tomorrow morning in anticipation of that meeting with that property owner to give them an idea as, okay, here's the situation that you have with this property.
But the redevelopment authority actually took title to this, or that's what's indicated on the assessment.
We did. We did.
And then they
file-
gave it back.
Yeah. We did. We filed a declaration of taking under the urban redevelopment law. We did take possession of the property, but then again, as Board Member Dickerson did allude to, there is part of this process where we enter into what's called a relinquishment agreement, and we did relinquish ownership back to the condomnee because there was enough evidence there and wherewithal that we felt as if she was going to proceed with the repairs to the property. There was already work going on as far as a store. She had attempted and obtained architectural renderings and Department of Labor and Industry approval on the renovation and installation of a store in the part of the building. So there was enough documentation there for us to trust that it was going to proceed. And we will give everybody the benefit of the doubt and allow them to do that. However, we're now almost 3 years down that road, and there's no store open and no further renovations have occurred since that time. So, certainly next week when we have that conversation, that's going to be part of it, and that's where we'll end up working toward a plan for this property and how we proceed.
So when the redevelopment authority took title to this, which was back in 2023, I assume they were in the building and assessed it was salvageable at that time, and
Yes.
but yeah, time's a wasting on this one as well. I mean, a
Yes.
flat roof building, it's quite
Yeah.
expensive to replace, and
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely agree with you.
I just would like to add that I do own the house directly next door to this property right behind it. And I was under the impression that the first floor was, I guess, renovated and being used for certain things, but the second floor was never renovated or used at all. So is it completely vacant?
So it's completely vacant currently. There is no occupancy in the property whatsoever. So when I was in the property in 2023, they had renovated the northeast corner of the building for a store. They were renovating and putting what appeared to be a kitchen in the back part of the building for the store. But the rest of the building maintained its original bar that was in it, and the second floor was a couple apartments that, definitely needed some substantial renovation.
So after the meeting, we're going to decide if we're moving forward with acquiring this property?
So the board would, by resolution, authorize and direct the redevelopment authority to start the process of acquiring these properties on the land bank's behalf. certainly, like I said, that's a 3 to 5 month process. And so we will not file the documentation. So like I said, 10 properties, the board authorized 6. Once we get to the point of knowing what is ready to go before Gene and his team file the official paperwork, it'll come back to the redevelopment, or to the land bank board for which properties you would ultimately like to take.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that would be a good one for rehab.
Yes.
All right, 1918 Cascade Street, residential properties, blighted in 2022. Active utilities, 2 years delinquent on taxes. The rear of the structure collapsed, and they started some renovations and tore it apart, and just kind of have walked away from it at this point. So it's just sitting there as a vacant residential structure that's, of course, inviting to vagrants and individuals to try to break into. So certainly code enforcement receives a lot of calls and complaints on that property.
That
2407.
building is heated?
What's that?
That one is heated? You say the utilities are on, or is it just
Utilities
the
are
electric?
on. And that could be power.
Okay.
It could be, most cases, not water. It's most time it's gas or electric. And whether it's just that somebody hasn't, there's a lot of reasons utilities can still be on. We've seen quite a bit of it, but it's hard to assume exactly this property, which one's on. I can get that for you if the board would wish. 2407 June Street, blighted in April of 2023. This property sits on a very large lot at the corner of June and Glendale Avenue over in the Fairmont-McClelland area. It's definitely not a rehab candidate based upon some of the pictures that code enforcement has gotten. However, it is a large lot that could be subdivided into 2 buildable parcels in an otherwise stable neighborhood. So definitely some future development opportunities on this parcel within that neighborhood. So that would be my plan for this one. 2801 Holland Street is a corner property at the corner of 28th and Holland. Again, it appears from the outside to be salvageable. We'll know more once we can get inside, but there was some renovation started, but they have since walked away. There was a new electrical service, weatherhead and service put in, so the extent of the inside is unknown at this point, but certainly salvageable if we get to it. It was bladed in 2023, and there's just been no compliance at this point. 3229 Brandis is a property in an otherwise stable neighborhood. I believe from preliminary look, the individual passed away, and the family or the estate has failed to move forward with anything on the property. So if we can successfully, acquire the property, it is definitely a rehabilitation candidate. Windows remain open, and it would be nice to get into it sooner than later and secure it and hopefully get it rehabilitated or out to developers for rehabilitation.
So this one's on the list because of the windows?
It is on the list because it's vacant, it's 2 years tax delinquent, and it has numerous exterior code violations. 454 East 10th Street was blighted in 2024. Pre-condemnation notice was sent in February of 2024, but we ended up deciding not to proceed with condemnation at that point. But the property has remained vacant. There is 2 single-family structures on this property. I believe the front might actually be a 2-family structure or conversion to 2-family, but we're not certain at this point. But again, this is 2 structures on the parcel at 454 East 10th Street. 2904 East Avenue was blighted in November of 2023. It's vacant. Utilities are inactive. The north wall of the structure in the basement has collapsed and has continuing deterioration that has grown to a level to which that I'm recommending condemnation of the property. And that is it.
So Aaron, on the last property where all those bricks and different things are, is that under something like the garage, or what exactly is that under?
Hold on, let me pull that back up. I won't let me go back, hold on. Bear with me a second. So the blocks that you've seen in that middle picture, that is the basement CMU blocks that have collapsed. The north wall of that structure has collapsed in the basement. So the entire north wall along 29th Street has, back in 2023, it showed a severe level of movement, but since fall, it has actually collapsed. So there's a good section of that basement wall that has collapsed into the foundation, so.
Thank you.
So that is my list of properties that I'm recommending, to the Land Bank Board for movement to the Redevelopment Authority to start the pre-condemnation actions against the property and seek acquisition or compliance by the property owners.
Do we have a motion to approve this work plan?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carl, you still there?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you get that vote?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The next topic is property tax and nuisance liens.
Yes, so there's two resolutions, land bank tax exoneration for properties at 711 Vine Street and 110 East 22nd Street, as outlined on the resolution.
Do we have a motion to put forward these abatements?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
And Carl?
I've got one unfinished business.
Oh, we got one more resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the second one is a
Okay.
resolution for the exoneration of a nuisance lien at 711 Vine Street. It is a board and seal and grass cutting lien in the amount of $960.23. So that resolution is for the exoneration of that. If we can have a motion in a second.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then when you mentioned mowing lien, that one picture you had on that East Avenue property showed somebody, it looked like might have been a city employee mowing the lawn. Have we been mowing that?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay.
We haven't pulled nuisance liens in that yet from the city.
The question I had, we had a young fellow who had been rehabbing a house in southeast Erie, and because our draw schedule favors exterior improvements first, he was upside down because he was into the middle of the winter and he was out of money and he hadn't done what he needed to do outside yet. And how is that project coming along? Have we made an accommodation with him so he could keep going?
Yeah, so we actually visited the property last Wednesday, and Board Member Dickerson was there.
Good.
At the inspection as well, and so he's making good progress. He's got to final up some of his electrical, plumbing, and mechanical liens, take care of a couple other items, so we're hoping to have a successful final inspection here, but we did authorize 3/4 of his escrow payment to be dispersed, so the check is being cut and processed for disbursement of that. So he's making progress, and hopefully within the next week or two, we'll have a successful final inspection and be able to issue a certificate of completion on that project.
Good. Is there any other business? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.